あ、皆さん聞こえますか？ Can everyone hear me? このぴー。Hello, hello. Can everyone hear me okay? 皆さん聞こえますか？は。Look, I look like Alice in Wonder. I look like Alice, don't I? ちょっとアリスっぽい頭、可愛くない？ I was gonna multi-stream on Twitch and Twitter, but then the sound wasn't like going, like you couldn't hear anything, so I decided to turn it off. So yes. よし。So today we are reading Alice's Adventure in Wonderland. 今日は不思議の国のアリスを読みます。でもこの曲じゃないわ。この歌は皆さん、歌じゃないわ、お話。このお話は皆さんご存知の通り、英語がね、元のお話なので、英語版を読んでいきたいと思います。すごくね、便利なサイトがありまして、日本語訳と英語版を両方真横に置いてるサイトがあるので、ぜひこれを一緒に見ながら聞いたらとてもいいと思います。一応ね、字幕はね、日本語の字幕は出しておくつもりだけど、あんまりちゃんとしてない時の方が多かったりするから、ぜひこちら見てください。Yeah, it's a nice website, isn't it? You can read the Japanese translations together with the original English text. So yeah. 和訳持ってるから、本当に英語がないともしかしたら、わかんなくなったら、どこかわかんなくなっちゃうかもしれないから、一応英語もね、画面には出すつもりだけど、あった方がわかりやすいかもしれないので、ぜひできる方は、英語の方は先にまず出すのはおすすめです。Yeah, but yes, look, the reason why I haven't shown my body yet, because look, it's kind of not perfect, because, here, I'll show you guys first. 見せる体隠してる理由。Look, こうやって、ちょっとアリスっぽいお洋服見つけたの。でもね、動くとね、こんななっちゃうからね、あんまり綺麗じゃないんだけど、お洋服ね、脱ぐこともできるんだけど、そしたら大変なことになっちゃうから、服の上から乗せてます。いや。あとそうだ、あれもあるんだ。忘れてた。I forgot I have a hand too. 手もあるの忘れてた。手もあるのって言い方おかしいな。本もある。I have a book too. I have a book. 本どこ行った？あった。ちょっとほら。It's gonna... don't worry, this isn't my real hand, okay, guys? You didn't see that? こんぐらいの大きさかな。違う、こっちじゃない。I wanted to flip it. こうだ。It's on my hand, guys. はい。っていう感じで、こんな感じでやっていきたいと思います。今日はそんなにね、動かないから別にこんな感じでもいいかなって。Alright, so how does the volume sound? Is like the BGM too loud, too quiet? Or should I raise my voice or lower it? How does everything sound? I think this will be the tone of voice I will be reading in. So let me know how you like the balance of everything. 音の調整どんな感じ？どうでしょうか？今日のね、喋ってるトーンはこんな感じのトーンでいこうと思ってるので、BGM がもうちょっと下げた方がいいよとか上げた方がいいよとかってあったら言ってくれるとありがたいです。はい。So, while I wait for you guys to say stuff, そんな感じかな。OK. Yeah. Sounds perfect? OK. とってもいい声です。ありがとうございます。じゃあね、今日の、概要欄に書いてありますが、一応ね、当たり前だけど、読んでる間は、コメント欄には、返事はできないので、コメントはね、いつも通りしてもらって大丈夫だけど、読んでる間は、拾えないので、ご了承ください。でね、定期的にお水飲んだりするために、なんか間が空いたり、なんなら水飲みすぎて、おトイレ行きたいとかっていう可能性もあるから、その場合はね、できるだけね、このテンションよりは高くはしないつもりなので、寝ちゃった人は全然寝てもいいけど、ワンチャン起こしたりしたらごめんなさい。っていう感じで。It's cool, you can do, yeah, right, it's cute, right? So, the details are in the description below, but of course I won't be able to respond to chat when I'm reading, but feel free to chat like usual. I will be checking it. I may take many breaks here and there to drink water and maybe even go to the bathroom because, I'll be drinking a lot of water. But if you do fall asleep, that's okay. But I do apologize in advance if I do wake you up. This isn't a stream to make you fall asleep. I feel like you would, but if I wake you up, don't get mad at me, okay? I won't try to make my voice louder than this. So yeah. But yes, the details are in the description below. So please, check that out. お昼寝推奨ではありません。お昼寝推奨ではありませんが、どうせ昼寝する人いるだろうなと思ったので、もし寝るつもりの人は、途中で起こされても文句言わないでねっていうことです。Will you randomly scream to wake everyone up? If I ever talk to you guys and no one responds, maybe I will. Maybe I will. So be prepared. 寝てもいいけど寝かせるための配信ではないからそこだけご了承ください。細かいことはね概要欄に書いてるのでぜひ読んでくれると嬉しいです。今のうちにねチャンネル登録高評価よろしくお願いします。 If you haven't already, please do like and subscribe and yeah, why don't we get into it? じゃあ行きますか。 Why don't we start? So, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland みんな読んだことあるかな？ I'm sure many of you have watched movies of it, right? きっと映画はねいろんな種類の映画が出てるからそういうの見たことあるよって人いると思うけど実際に本読んだことないっていう人は多いと思うのでノピもね実は最初の2章3章ぐらいまでしか読んだことないからなんだけど1章は読んだことあるから今日読む分は読んだことあります。I've only read the first 3 chapters or so, and I only plan to read the first chapter today. So, what we'll be reading today, I have read. But yeah, I don't know if I will plan to do any like discussion at the end, maybe like a very brief one, but not very long. 今日の文読んだら最後になんか感想とかは、軽くするかもしれないけど大してそこまでするつもりはないのではい、次回の配信でね話したりしてもいいかなって思ってます。じゃあ始めますか。じゃあ英語で読むので、英語版をね一緒に目で辿っていたい方は今のうちに、概要欄にリンク貼ってあるのででも和訳を読みたい方は和訳でもどちらでも良いので準備してください。Yeah, get your text ready if you want to follow along. If not, we are going to start. じゃ字幕もね、英語から日本語に切り替えます。I'm gonna change the subs to English to Japanese. Because the whole thing is gonna be in English. Alright, いきますよ。で途中でねなんかあったりしたら配信になんか問題出てきたりしたらいつも通り遠慮なく言ってください。Alright! じゃあ行きましょうか。始めます。最初はねなんかポエムみたいなのから始まるからちょっと変わってます。The first part is like a poem, so it'll sound a little bit different. So, let's begin. 始めましょう。Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. All in the golden afternoon, full leisurely we glide. For both our oars, with little skill, by little arms are plied. While little hands make vain pretendence, our wanderings to guide. Oh, it's pretense, I'm sorry. Ah, cruel three, in such an hour, beneath such dreamy weather, to beg a tale of breath too weak, to stir the tiniest feather. Yet what can one poor voice avail against three tongues together? Imperious Prima flashes forth her edict to begin it. In gentler tone, Secunda hopes there will he nonsense in it, while Tertia interrupts the tale not more than once a minute. Anon, to sudden silence won, in fancy they pursue the dream child moving through a land of wonders wild and new, in friendly chat with bird or beast, and half believe it true. And ever, as the story drained the wells of fancy dry, and faintly strove that weary one to put the subject by, the rest next time. It is next time, the happy voices cry. Thus grew the tale of Wonderland, thus slowly, one by one, its quaint events were hammered out. And now the tale is done, and home we steer a merry crew beneath the setting sun. Alice, a childish story take, and with a gentle hand lay it where childhood's dreams are twined in memory's mystic band, like pilgrims' withered wreath of flowers plucked in a far-off land. So that was the poem. ここまでがポエムですね。のびもよく意味わかりません。ちゃんと読まないと。I have no idea what I just read. Anyways. じゃあここからですね。Chapter 1 Down the Rabbit Hole. Alice, excuse me. Alice was beginning to get very tired of sitting by her sister on the bank, and of having nothing to do. Once or twice she had peeped into the book her sister was reading, but it had no pictures or conversations in it. And what is the use of a book, thought Alice, without pictures or conversation? So she was considering in her own mind, as well as she could, for the hot day made her feel very sleepy and stupid, whether the pleasure of making a daisy chain would be worth the trouble of getting up and picking the daisies, when suddenly a white rabbit with pink eyes ran close by her. There was nothing so very remarkable in that, nor did Alice think it so very much out of the way to hear the rabbit say to itself, oh dear, I shall be late." When she thought it over afterwards, it occurred to her that she ought to have wondered at this, but at the time it all seemed quite natural. But when the rabbit actually took a watch out of its waistcoat pocket and looked at it, and then hurried on, Alice started to her feet, for it flashed across her mind that she had never before seen a rabbit with either a waistcoat pocket or a watch to take out of it. and burning with curiosity, she ran across the field after it, and fortunately was just in time to see it pop down a large rabbit hole under the hedge. In another moment down went Alice after it, never once considering how in the world she was to get out again. The rabbit hole went straight on like a tunnel for some way, and then dipped suddenly down, so suddenly that Alice had not a moment to think about stopping herself before she found herself falling down a very deep well. Either the well was very deep, or she fell very slowly, for she had plenty of time as she went down to look about her and to wonder what was going to happen next. First, she tried to look down and make out what she was coming to, but it was too dark to see anything. Then she looked at the sides of the well and noticed that they were filled with cupboards and bookshelves. Here and there she saw maps and pictures hung upon pegs. She took down a jar from one of the shelves as she passed. It was labeled Orange Marmalade, but to her great disappointment, it was empty. She did not like to drop the jar for fear of killing somebody, so managed to put it into one of the cupboards as she fell past it. Well, thought Alice to herself, after such a fall as this, I shall think nothing of tumbling downstairs. How brave they'll all think me at home. Why, I wouldn't say anything about it, even if I fell off the top of the house, which was very likely true. Down, down, down. Would the fall never come to an end? I wonder how many miles I've fallen by this time, she said out loud. I must be getting somewhere near the center of the earth. Let me think. That would be 4,000 miles down, I think. For, you see, Alice had learned several things of this sort in her lessons in the schoolroom, and though this was not a very good opportunity for showing her knowledge, as there was no one to listen to her, still, it was good practice to say it over. Yes, that's about the right distance. But then I wonder what latitude or longitude I've got to. Alice had no idea what latitude was, or longitude either, but thought they were nice grand words to say. Presently she began again. I wonder if I shall fall right through the earth. How funny it'll seem to come out among the people that walk with their heads downward. The antipathies, I think. She was rather glad there was no one listening, this time, as it didn't sound at all the right word. But I shall have to ask them what the name of the country is, you know. Please, ma'am, is this New Zealand or Australia? As she tried to curtsy as she spoke. Fancy curtsying as you're falling through the air. Do you think you could manage it? And what an ignorant little girl shall think of me for asking. No, it'll never do to ask. Perhaps I shall see it written up somewhere. Down, down, down. There was nothing else to do, so Alice soon began talking again. Denial will miss me very much tonight, I should think. Denial was the cat. I hope they'll remember her saucer of milk at tea time. Is it Dinah? Denia, my dear, I wish you were down here with me. There are no mice in the air, I'm afraid, but but you might catch a bat, and that's very like a mouse, you know. But do cats eat bats, I wonder? And here Alice began to get rather sleepy and went on saying to herself, in a dreamy sort of way, "Do cats eat bats? Do cats eat bats? And sometimes, do bats eat cats?" For, you see, as she couldn't answer either question, it didn't much matter which way she put it. She felt that she was dozing off and had just begun to dream that she was walking hand in hand with Denaya and saying to her very earnestly, "Now, Denaya, tell me the truth. Did you ever eat a bat?" When suddenly, thump, thump, down she came upon a heap of sticks and dry leaves, and the fall was over. Alice was not a bit hurt, and she jumped up onto her feet in a moment. She looked up, but it was all dark overhead. Before her was another long passage, and the white rabbit was still in sight, hurrying down it. There was not a moment to be lost. Away went Alice like the wind, and was just in time to hear it say, as it turned a corner, "Oh, my ears and whiskers, how late it's getting." She was close behind it when she turned the corner, but the rabbit was no longer to be seen. She found herself in a long, low hall, which was lit up by a row of lamps hanging from the roof. There were doors all round the hall, but they were all locked, and when Alice had been all the way down one side and up the other, trying every door, she walked sadly down the middle, wondering how she was ever to get out again. Suddenly, she came upon a little three-legged table, all made of solid glass. There was nothing on it except a tiny golden key, and Alice's first thought was that it might belong to one of the doors of the hall. But alas, either the locks were too large or the key was too small, but at any rate, it would not open any of them. However, on the second time round, she came upon a low curtain she had not noticed before, and behind it was a little door about 15 inches high. She tried the little golden key in the lock, and to her great delight, it fitted. Alice opened the door and found that it led into a small passage, not much larger than a rat hole. She knelt down and looked along the passage into the loveliest garden you ever saw. How she longed to get out of that dark hall and wander about among those beds of bright flowers and those cool fountains. But she could not even get her head through the doorway. And even if my head would go through, thought poor Alice, it would be of very little use without my shoulders. Oh, how I wish I could shut up like a telescope. I think I could, if I only know how to begin. For you see, so many out-of-the-way things has happened lately that Alice had begun to think that very few things indeed were really impossible. There seemed to be no use in waiting by the little door, so she went back to the table, half hoping she might find another key on it, or at any rate a book of rules for shutting people up like telescopes. This time she found a little bottle on it, which certainly was not here before, said Alice, and round the neck of the bottle was a paper label with the words, "Drink me," beautifully printed on it in large letters. It was all very well to say, "Drink me," but the wise little Alice was not going to do that in a hurry. "No, I'll look first," she said, "and see whether it's marked poison or not." For she had read several nice little histories about children who had got burnt and eaten up by wild beasts and other unpleasant things, all because they would not remember the simple rules their friends had taught them, such as that a red-hot poker will burn you if you hold it too long, and that if you cut your finger very deeply with a knife, it usually bleeds. And she had never forgotten that if you drink much from a bottle marked poison, it is almost certain to disagree with you sooner or later. However, this bottle was not marked poison, so Alice ventured to taste it, and finding it very nice. It had, in fact, a sort of mixed flavor of cherry tart, custard, pineapple, roast turkey, toffee, and hot buttered toast. She very soon finished it off. "What a curious feeling," said Alice. "I must be shutting up like a telescope." And so it was indeed. She was now only 10 inches high, and her face brightened up at the thought that she was now the right size for going through the little door into that lovely garden. First, however, she waited for a few minutes to see if she was going to shrink any further. She felt a little nervous about this, for it might end, you know, said Alice to herself. "It might going out altogether like a candle. I wonder what I should be like then." And she tried to fancy what the flame of a candle is like after the candle is blown out, for she could not remember ever having seen such a thing. After a while, finding that nothing more had happened, she decided on going into the garden at once. But alas for poor Alice. When she got to the door, she found she had forgotten the little golden key, and when she went back to the table for it, she found she could not possibly reach it. She could see it quite plainly through the glass, and she tried her best to climb up one of the legs of the table, but it was too slippery. And when she had tired herself out with trying, the poor little thing sat down and cried. "Come, there's no use in crying like that," said Alice to herself rather sharply. "I advise you to leave off this minute." She generally gave herself very good advice, though she very seldom followed it. And sometimes she scolded herself so severely as to bring tears into her eyes. And once she remembered trying to box her own ears for having cheated herself in a game of croquet she was playing against herself. For this curious child was very fond of pretending to be two people. "But it's no use now," thought poor Alice, "to pretend to be two people. Why, there's hardly enough of me left to make one respectable person." Soon her eye fell on a little glass box that was lying under the table. She opened it and found it in a very small cake, on which the words, "Eat me," were beautifully marked in currants. "Well, I'll eat it," said Alice, "and if it makes me grow larger, I can reach the key." And if it makes me grow smaller, I can creep under the door. So either way, I'll get into the garden, and I don't care which happens. She ate a little bit and said anxiously to herself, "Which way? Which way?" Holding her hand on the top of her head to feel which way it was growing. And she was quite surprised to find that she remained the same size. To be sure, this generally happens when one eats cake, but Alice had got so much into the way of expecting nothing but out of the way things to happen that it seemed quite dull and stupid for life to go on in the common way. So she set to work and very soon finished off the cake. Wait, chapter 1 was so much shorter than I thought. Chapter 1短かったな。Chapter 2行くか。Let's read chapter 2 too. あ、おちさん来てくれてありがとう。Welcome, welcome. I'm gonna read chapter 2, okay? じゃあ chapter 2第2章いっちゃいましょう。結構短かったから。Alright, chapter 2 The Pool of Tears. Dun 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 dun. Oh my god. Dun 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 dun. Oh my god. Curiouser and curiouser, cried Alice. She was so much surprised that for the moment she quite forgot how to speak good English. Now I'm opening out like the largest telescope that ever was. Goodbye, feet. For when she looked down at her feet, they seemed to be almost out of sight. They were getting so far off. Oh, my poor little feet. I wonder who will put on your shoes and stockings for you now, dears. I'm sure I shan't be able. I shall be a great deal too far off to trouble myself about you. You must manage the best way you can. But I must be kind to them, thought Alice. Or perhaps they won't walk the way I want to go. Let me see. I'll give them a new pair of boots every Christmas. And she went on planning to herself how she would manage it. They must go by the carrier, she thought, and how funny it'll seem. Sending presents to one's own feet, and how odd the directions will look. Alice's right foot. Hearthrug near the fender with Alice's love. Oh dear, what nonsense I'm talking. Just then, her head struck against the roof of the hall. In fact, she was now more than 9 feet high, and she at once took up the little golden key and hurried off to the garden door. Poor Alice, it was as much as she could do, lying down on one side to look through into the garden with one eye. But to get through was more hopeless than ever. She sat down and began to cry again. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, said Alice. A great girl like you, she might well say this, to go on crying in this way. Stop this moment, I tell you. But she went on all the same, shedding gallons of tears until there was a large pool all around her, about 4 inches deep and reaching half down the hall. After a time, she heard a little pattering of feet in the distance, and she hastily dried her eyes to see what was coming. It was the White Rabbit returning, splendidly dressed, with a pair of white kid gloves in one hand and a large fan in the other. He came trotting along in such a hurry, muttering to himself as he came. Why can't I scroll? Oh, the Duchess! The Duchess! Oh, won't she be savage if I've kept her waiting? Alice felt so desperate that she was ready to ask help of anyone, so when the rabbit came near her, she began in a low, timid voice. If you please, sir. The rabbit started violently, dropped the white kid gloves and the fan, and scurried away into the darkness as hard as he could go. Why the heck can't I scroll? What the heck? Okay, there we go. Alice took up the fan and gloves, and as the hall was very hot, she kept fanning herself all the time she went on talking. Dear, dear, how queer everything is today. And yesterday things went on just as usual. I wonder if I've been changed in the night. Let me think. Was I the same when I got up this morning? I almost think I can remember feeling a little different. But if I'm not the same, the next question is, who in the world am I? Ah, that's the great puzzle. And she began thinking over all the children she knew that were of the same age as herself, to see if she could have been changed for any of them. I'm sure I'm not Ada, she said, for her hair goes in such long ringlets, and mine doesn't go in ringlets at all. And I'm sure I can't be Mabel, for I know all sorts of things, and she knows such a very little. Besides, she's she, and I'm I, and oh dear, how puzzling it all is. I'll try if I know all the things I used to know. Let me see. 4 times 5 is 12, and 4 times 6 is 13, and 4 times 7 is... Oh dear, I shall never get to 20 at that rate. However, the multiplication table doesn't signify. Let's try geography. London is the capital of Paris, and Paris is the capital of Rome, and Rome... No, that's all wrong. I'm certain I must have been changed for Mabel. I'll try and say, how doth the little... And she crossed her hands on her lap as if she were saying lessons and began to repeat it. But her voice sounded hoarse and strange, and the words did not come the same as they used to. How doth the little crocodile improve his shining tail, and pour the waters of the Nile on every golden scale? How cheerfully he seems to grin, how neatly spread his claws, and welcome little fishes and with gently smiling jaws. I'm sure those are not the right words, said poor Alice, and her eyes filled with tears again as she went on. I must be Mabel after all, and I shall have to go and live in that poky little house and have next to no toys to play with. And oh, ever so many lessons to learn. No, I've made up my mind about it. If I'm Mabel, I'll stay down here. It'll be no use their putting their heads down and saying, come up again, dear. I shall only look up and say, who am I then? Tell me that first, and then, if I like being that person, I'll come up. If not, I'll stay down here till I'm somebody else. But, oh dear, cried Alice with a sudden burst of tears. I do wish they would put their heads down. I'm so very tired of being all alone here. Ooh, okay. As she said this, she looked down at her hands and was surprised to see that she had put on one of the rabbit's little white kid gloves while she was talking. How can I have done that? She thought. I must be growing small again. She got up and went to the table to measure herself by it, and found that, as nearly as she could guess, she was now about 2 feet high, and was going on shrinking rapidly. She soon found out that the cause of this was the fan she was holding, and she dropped it hastily, just in time to avoid shrinking again altogether. That was a narrow escape, said Alice, a good deal frightened at the sudden change, but very glad to find herself still in existence. And now for the garden! And she ran with all speed back to the little door. But alas, the little door was shut again, and the little golden key was lying on the glass table as before. And things are worse than ever, thought the poor child, for I never was so small as this before, never, and I declare it's too bad that it is. As she said these words, her foot slipped, and another moment, splash! She was up to her chin in salt water. Her first idea was that she had somehow fallen into the sea. And in that case, I can go back by railway, she said to herself. Alice had been to the seaside once in her life, and had come to the general conclusion that wherever you go to on the English coast, you find a number of bathing machines in the sea. Some children digging in the sand with wooden spades, then a row of lodging houses, and behind them a railway station. That sounds weird. However, she soon made out that she was in the pool of tears, which she had wept when she was 9 feet high. I wish I hadn't cried so much, said Alice as she swam about, trying to find her way out. I shall be punished for it now, I suppose, by being drowned in my own tears. That will be a queer thing, to be sure. However, everything is queer today. Just then, she heard something splashing about in the pool a little way off, and she swarmed nearer to make out what it was. At first, she thought it must be a walrus or hippopotamus, but then she remembered how small she was now, and she soon made out that it was only a mouse that had slipped in like herself. Would it be of any use now, thought Alice, to speak to this mouse? Everything is so out of the way down here that I should think very likely it can talk. At any rate, there's no harm in trying. So she began. Oh, Mouse, do you know the way out of this pool? I am very tired of swimming about here, oh Mouse. Alice thought this must be the right way of speaking to a mouse. She had never done such a thing before, but she remembered having seen in her brother's Latin grammar. A mouse, of a mouse, to a mouse, oh mouse. The mouse looked at her rather inquisitively and seemed to her to wink with one of its little eyes, but it said nothing. Perhaps it doesn't understand English, thought Alice. I dare say it's a French mouse, come over with William the Conqueror. For with all her knowledge of history, Alice had no very clear notion how long ago anything had happened. So she began again. Où est ma chatte? Which was the first sentence in her French lesson book. The mouse gave a sudden leap out of the water and seemed to quiver all over with fright. "Oh, I beg your pardon," cried Alice hastily, afraid that she had hurt the poor animal's feelings. "I quite forgot you didn't like cats." "Not like cats," cried the mouse in a shrill, passionate voice. "Would you like cats if you were me?" "Well, perhaps not," said Alice in a soothing tone. "Don't be angry about it. And yet I wish I could show you our little cat Denaya. I think you'd take a fancy to cats if you could only see her. She is such a dear, quiet thing." Alice went on, half to herself, as she swam lazily about in the pool. "And she sits purring so nicely by the fire, licking her paws and washing her face. And she is such a nice soft thing to nurse. And she's such a capital one for catching mice." "I beg your pardon," cried Alice again. For this time the mouse was bristling all over, and she felt certain it must be really offended. "We won't talk about her anymore if you'd rather not." "We indeed," cried the mouse, who was trembling down to the end of his tail. "As if I would talk on such a subject. Our family always hated cats. Nasty, low, vulgar things. Don't let me hear the name again." "I won't indeed," said Alice in a great hurry to change the subject of conversation. Are you fond of dogs?" The mouse did not answer, so Alice went on eagerly. "There is such a nice little dog near our house I should like to show you. A little bright-eyed terrier, with such long curly brown hair. And it'll fetch things when you throw them. And it'll sit up and beg for its dinner and all sorts of things. I can't remember half of them. And it belongs to the farmer, And he says it's so useful, it's worth £100. He says it kills all the rats and..." "Oh dear," cried Alice in a sorrowful tone. "I'm afraid I've offended it again." For the mouse was swimming away from her as hard as it could go, and making quite a commotion in the pool as it went. So she called softly after it. "Mouse dear, do come back again, and we won't talk about cats or dogs either. If you don't like them." When the mouse heard this, it turned around and swam slowly back to her. Its face was quite pale, with passion, Alice thought, and it said in a low, trembling voice, "Let us get to the shore, and then I'll tell you my history, and you'll understand why it is I hate cats and dogs." It was high time to go, for the pool was getting quite crowded with birds and animals that had fallen into it. There were a duck, and a dodo, and a lory, and an eaglet, and several other curious creatures. Alice led the way, and the whole party swam to the shore. Let's do chapter 3 and call it a day? じゃあ、第3章やって今日終わりましょうか。時間的にもいいかもしれない。Right, we started. I don't want the archive to be too long. アーカイブは長すぎるのもあれだから。よし、これで最後にしましょう。Yes, let's do this as the last chapter for today. 最後の第3章。今日は最後にしましょう。Okay. Chapter 3. A caucus race and a long tail. They were indeed a queer-looking party that assembled on the bank. The birds... Excuse me. I'll redo that again. 今のもう一回読み直しますね。ちょっとお水飲んで。OK。言いましょう。They were indeed a queer-looking party that assembled on the bank. The birds with draggled feathers, the animals with their fur clinging close to them, and all dripping wet, cross, and uncomfortable. The first question, of course, was how to get dry again. They had a consultation about this, and after a few minutes, it seemed quite natural to Alice to find herself talking familiarly with them, as if she had known them all her life.Indeed, she had quite a long argument with the Lorry, who at last turned sulky, and would only say, I am older than you, and must know better. And this Alice would not allow without knowing how old it was, and as the Lorry positively refused to tell its age, there was no more to be said.At last, the mouse, who seemed to be a person of authority among them, called out, Sit down, all of you, and listen to me. I'll soon make you dry enough. They all sat down at once, in a large ring, with the mouse in the middle. Alice kept her eyes anxiously fixed on it, for she felt sure she would catch a bad cold if she did not get dry very soon.Ahem, said the mouse with an important air. Are you all ready? This is the driest thing I know. Silence all around, if you please. William the Conqueror, whose cause was favored by the Pope, was soon submitted to by the English, who wanted leaders and had been of late much accustomed to usurpation and conquest.Edwin and Morcar, the Earls of Mercia and Northumbria. Ugh, said the Lorry with a shiver. I beg your pardon, said the mouse, frowning, but very politely. Did you speak? Not I, said the Lorry hastily. I thought you did, said the mouse. I proceed.Edwin and Morcar, the Earls of Mercia and Northumbria, declared for him, and even Stigand and the patriotic Archbishop of Canterbury found it advisable. Found what? Said the duck. Found it, the mouse replied rather crossly. Of course you know what it means. I know what it means well enough.When I find a thing, said the duck, it's generally a frog or a worm. The question is, what did the Archbishop find? The mouse did not notice this question, but hurriedly went on. Found it advisable to go with Edgar Atheling to meet William and offer him the crown. William's conduct at first was moderate, but the insolence of his Normans...How are you getting on now, my dear? It continued, turning to Alice as it spoke. As wet as ever, said Alice in a melancholy tone. It doesn't seem to dry me at all. In that case, said the dodo solemnly, rising to its feet, I move that the meeting adjourn for the immediate adoption of more energetic remedies.Speak English, said the eaglet. I don't know the meaning of half those long words, and what's more, I don't believe you do either. And the eaglet bent down its head to hide a smile. Some of the other birds tittered audibly. What I was going to say, said the dodo in an offended tone, was that the best thing to get us dry would be a caucus race. What is a caucus race? Said Alice, not that she wanted much to know, but the dodo had paused as if it thought that somebody ought to speak, and no one else seemed inclined to say anything. Why, said the dodo, the best way to explain it is to do it. And as you might like to try the thing yourself some winter day, I will tell you how the dodo managed it. First, it marked out a race course in a sort of circle. The exact shape doesn't matter, it said. And then all the party were placed along the course, here and there. There was no 1, 2, 3, and away, but they began running when they liked, and left off when they liked, so that it was not easy to know when the race was over. However, when they had been running half an hour or so, they were quite dry again. The dodo suddenly called out, "The race is over!" And they all crowded round it, panting and asking, "But who has won?" This question the dodo could not answer without a great deal of thought, and it sat for a long time with one finger pressed upon its forehead, the position in which you usually see Shakespeare in the pictures of him, while the rest waited in silence. At last, the dodo said, "Everybody has won, and all must have prizes." "But who is to give the prizes?" quite a chorus of voices asked. "Why, she, of course," said the dodo, pointing to Alice with one finger, and the whole party at once crowded round her, calling out in a confused way, "Prizes! Prizes!" Alice had no idea what to do, and in despair she put her hand in her pocket and pulled out a box of comfits. Luckily, the salt water had not got into it, and handed them round as prizes. There was exactly one apiece all around. "But she must have a prize herself, you know," said the mouse. "Of course," the dodo replied very gravely. "What else have you got in your pocket?" he went on, turning to Alice. "Only a thimble," said Alice sadly. "Hand it over here," said the dodo. Then they all crowded round her once more, while the dodo solemnly presented the thimble, saying, "We beg your acceptance of this elegant thimble." And when it had finished this short speech, they all cheered. Alice thought the whole thing very absurd, but they all looked so grave that she did not dare to laugh. And as she could not think of anything to say, she simply bowed and took the thimble, looking as solemn as she could. The next thing was to eat the comfits. This caused some noise and confusion, as the large birds complained that they could not taste theirs, and the small ones choked and had to be patted on the back. However, it was over at last, and they sat down again in a ring and begged the mouse to tell them something more. "You promised to tell me your history, you know," said Alice, "and why it is you hate C and D," she added in a whisper, half afraid that it would be offended again. "Mine is a long and sad tale," said the mouse, turning to Alice and sighing. "It is a long tale, certainly," said Alice, looking down with wonder at the mouse's tail. "But why do you call it sad?" And she kept on puzzling about it while the mouse was speaking, so that her idea of the tale was something like this. Fury said to a mouse that he met in the house, "Let us both go to law. I will prosecute you. Come, I'll take no denial. We must have a trial. For really, this morning I've nothing to do." Said the mouse to the cur, "Such a trial, dear sir, with no jury or judge, would be wasting our breath." "I'll be judge, I'll be jury," said cunning old Fury. "I'll try the whole cause and condemn you to death." "You are not attending," said the mouse to Alice severely. "What are you thinking of?" I beg your pardon? Or, I beg your pardon, said Alice very humbly. You had got to the fifth bend, I think. I had not, cried the mouse sharply and very angrily. Not, said Alice, always ready to make herself useful and looking anxiously about her. Oh, do let me help to undo it. I shall do nothing of the sort, said the mouse, getting up and walking away. You insult me by talking such nonsense. I didn't mean it, pleaded poor Alice. But you're so easily offended, you know. The mouse only growled in reply. Please come back and finish your story, Alice called after it, and the others all joined in chorus. Yes, please do! But the mouse only shook its head impatiently and walked a little quicker. What a pity it wouldn't stay, sighed the lorry, as soon as it was quite out of sight. And an old crab took the opportunity of saying to her daughter, Ah, my dear, let this be a lesson to you, never to lose your temper. Hold your tongue, Ma, said the young crab, a little snappishly. You're enough to try the patience of an oyster. I wish I had our Denia here. I know I do, said Alice aloud, addressing nobody in particular. She'd soon fetch it back. And who is Denia, if I might venture to ask the question? Said the lorry. Alice replied eagerly, for she was always ready to talk about her pet. Denia's our cat, and she's such a capital one for catching mice you can't think. And oh, I wish you could see her after the birds. Why, she'll eat a little bird as soon as look at it. This speech caused a remarkable sensation among the party. Some of the birds hurried off at once. One old magpie began wrapping itself up very carefully, remarking, I really must be getting home. The night air doesn't suit my throat. And the canary called out in a trembling voice to his children, Come away, my dears. It's high time you were all in bed. On various pretexts, they all moved off, and Alice was soon left alone. I wish I hadn't mentioned Denia, she said to herself in a melancholy tone. Nobody seems to like her down here, and I'm sure she's the best cat in the world. Oh, my dear Denia, I wonder if I shall ever see you any more. And here poor Alice began to cry again, for she felt very lonely and low-spirited. In a little while, however, she again heard a little pattering of footsteps in the distance, and she looked up eagerly, half hoping that the mouse had changed his mind and was coming back to finish his story. Well, that is the end of chapter 3. So yes, this is my first time reading out loud, so I think 3 chapters is the most I can do today. じゃあ今日はね、第3章までにしたいと思います。ちょっとね、朗読は初めてなので、初めてやってみて、3章ぐらいがマックスかなと思います。いっぺんにやるのが。Alright. You did really well, thank you. There were some words that I was like, not sure if I was reading it right, but...Thank you for listening. 聞いてくれてありがとうございます。いかがでしたか？聞き取れたかな？これ前の次の話だ。Here, I'll show you guys the pictures if you haven't seen it. じゃあ、イラストみんなに見せてあげる、最後に。どれだ？これか。浮きがいいところでね。あ、こうじゃない。Here, I could just reset it, actually. Reset, transform, reset. Boom. こういらないからね。And then, Yes. This was the rabbit. 最初のウサギのシーンですね。The rabbit. Rabbit, rabbit. And then Alice trying to go through the door. ドアを通ろうとしてるでっかいアリス。でっかいじゃない？これは普通のかな？ And then 大きくなったアリス。Right? I think she became big or small. I forgot. And then ほらほら And then her encountering the rabbit. And then her drowning. And then her swimming with the mouse. And her talking with the animals. With the dodo. The dodo. That's all. それぐらいですね。はい。っていう感じで今日は終わりたいと思います。ぜひね、アーカイブとか聞く方はね、英語版とか一緒に読みながら聞いてみてください。はい。まあ、好評であれば残りやってもいいんだけど、何話あるんだろう？ How many chapters are there? There's 12 chapters. I mean, 1, 2, 3 more streams? That's a lot. Maybe I can do more in one session as I do go. But if it seems like everyone wants me to finish it, I can. But for the time being, I do not have any plans. まあ好評であれば残り終わらせてもいいけど、今のところは終わらすつもりはなかったので、また聞きたいよーっていう人がいたらね、残り聞きたいよーっていう人がいたらね、ぜひ高評価、コメントなどなどで教えてくれたらと思います。はい。ということで、今日の配信はここまでとなります。So this is the end of the stream for today. I won't do much, but I do have a stream tomorrow with Hawako, or no, ピヨマル。明日はね、ピヨマルちゃん、ピヨマル様かなとコラボがあるので、ぜひね、ハワコちゃんのチャンネルに遊びに来てください。お昼かな？ Yeah, so I'll be at Hawako-chan's channel collabing with Piyomaru. So yeah, that'll be a rare collab to watch. So, I will see you guys there, okay? じゃあ、皆さん見に来てくれてありがとうございました。Thank you for watching. Let's see. Is there anyone we can raid? I'm like talking quieter than I was reading. Maybe I shouldn't raid. 目覚めちゃうかもしれないね。ハワコちゃんレイドできるかな？ハワコ。あわばみ。ハワコ。あわばみ。ハワコ。Yes, we'll raid. No, actually, she has like a trailer thing, so that might wake up people. So I'm not gonna raid into it. やっぱりタハコちゃんの待機場行かないわ。そういえばちょっと大きい音のトレーラー流れてるから、目が覚めたらかわいそうに寝てる人がワンチャンいたとしたらね。はい、ということで、Thank you for watching. Have a magical rest of your day, and I will see you guys tomorrow. おつのぴでした。バイバイ。